to my video on building my Bimini enclosure. And I just wanted to start with a little overview of the materials and techniques that I use for this. And keep in mind, although I've been a lifetime sewer, I'm making this up completely as I go along. I have never sewed a Dodger or Bimini or enclosure before. So it's been a bit of a engineering project, and I feel like I'm reinventing the wheel. But what I'm doing is giving myself a custom Bimini and enclosure with all the functionality that we want in it. To be honest, we're cheaping out. I can do this myself for probably about 1/10 of the price that it would cost to pay the professionals. Will it look as good as a professional one? Absolutely not, but I'm going to do the best I can. So the very first purchase that you're going to think about if you want to do this yourself is fabric. And of course, Sunbrella is the main fabric that pops into mind. It's got the name and the reputation. It certainly is a long-wearing, very durable, UV resistant, and water resistant fabric. The only really big drawback of Sunbrella is that it is very, very expensive. Here at our local fabric shop, it goes for $99 a meter. So when I was looking at outdoor fabrics, I chose to go with 100% olefin fabric. It was labeled Sunbrella, but I don't think it is. The big advantage of 100% olefin fabric is it's a fraction of the cost. Here it was $35 a meter and I got it for half price. So it was $240 for 12 meters of fabric, which was a really good deal. What are the advantages of olefin other than the cost factor? Well, it is as durable a fabric. It is almost as UV resistant. And in my case, I went with a very pale kind of gray beige color. I didn't want to try and match the dark teal green that the Dodger was. It eventually will be replaced someday, and I'd rather go with a lighter fabric. The olefin fabric is actually almost as water resistant, and actually it retains its water resistance longer than Sunbrella does. It's as durable. It's very long wearing. And what's really good about olefin versus Sunbrella is it's much more environmentally friendly. Olefin is actually made from the waste products of oil production. There's no land or water use in its production. It's 100% recyclable. The fabric actually can be melted down and re-extruded up to 10 times. So in that way, it's very environmentally friendly. And just like Sunbrella, it is chemical resistant and mold resistant. So it makes a very good outdoor fabric. It's very easy to work with. I'm sewing this with just a regular sewing machine. I don't have a Sailrite machine or that kind of heavy duty canvas machine. It does make it a little more awkward working with the large pieces, but my 40-year-old Omega sewing machine sewed through 6 layers of this fabric, not a problem. So that's the fabric. The next most important purchase is your thread. Thread, surprisingly enough, rots out in UV. Who knew? Sailrite sells their own brand name of UV resistant thread. There's also Tanara is another one, and Solar Fix, and they're 100% polyester. They've been treated. All 3 of those threads are PTFE, which is a polytetrafluoroethylene. I have to read that off, which is a fancy version of polyester. If you don't want to go that expensive with your thread, and in some ways this Bimini and enclosure is probably going to be temporary being 5 to 7 years perhaps, I went with a thread that I could get at my local store. And they actually do sell outdoor upholstery thread. You want to go with a heavy duty thread. 100% polyester thread is going to stand up to the UV better. Their outdoor upholstery thread actually is UV treated. You do not want to go with a nylon thread. Dacron is another one that's okay, but 100% polyester is recommended. Don't use cotton. Don't use an all-purpose thread. You need a heavy-duty upholstery type thread. And the last component for sewing this is our needles. Recommended are number 18 needles. They're a very heavy needle. I couldn't find those locally. I went with a 16. For example, for comparison, number 11 is your typical all-purpose sewing needle. Number 14 are jeans needles. So 16 and 18 are much heavier needles to use. So I'm having great success working with that. And one other thing before I get to sewing, I have some photographs and some video of some of the things I've done. I just want to show you a little trick. This fabric, the olefin, will unravel. If you don't want to have to sew, rolled edges or that sort of thing, because I can't do that for everything, this fabric melts very easily. And what you can do very carefully, light a match or use let's get that going, or use a lighter and just very carefully run that over the edge, and that will actually melt the edge of the fabric and it will no longer unravel. So that's a really good technique for preserving the edges of your fabric. It's a lot of work if you're doing a very large piece, but it's worth taking the time to do that. So on to the sewing. What I have here is the Bimini piece. This is a flap that will hang down over the back of the Bimini. This is the zipper that will go around the back upright crosspiece pole of the Bimini. On the outside, you can see maybe this is going over the curved back bar of the Bimini. And what I did is I sewed, I had pre-made these zipper pieces, and I'll have a picture of those. And I sewed all 4 pieces together. So this is the back flap. I sewed one of the zipper pieces, the Bimini top, and the other half of the zipper piece, and I sewed them like a sandwich all together. So that will put that seam right on top of the bar of the Bimini. And I figured if any leak did come through the seam, it would come down onto the bar and run down the sides and not drip on our heads. I have double stitched the seam, so there are 2 rows of stitching. That's for strength. I've used the longest stitch setting on my machine to do the longest stitch for this. And I'm going to go back with a match or a lighter and seal these seams so they won't be all frayed. And you can see how frayed this one is. I'll seal that one as well. This seam is actually going to be turned all the way in, so you won't see that raw edge at all. will zipper to the two frames of the Bimini. So that's all I can do from home. I'm taking my sewing machine out to the boat and I'm going to continue from there.